The computer seems to be different with YouTube. You're wrong.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbos.
Shalom.
Good morning. Welcome to our Shabbat morning worship here at the Beth Shalom Temple Center, Green Valley. We invite you to follow along. If you have a copy of Mishkan Tefillah, there is the Siddur, the Reform Movement's prayer book, which we will be using, and certainly with music, with traditional prayers, as well as the interpretive words that we will be including. You're welcome to follow along and join with us. We begin with the Cantor Jeff Klepper's interpretation of the traditional Ma Tovu, how goodly, how fair are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel, page 74. Ma Tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma Tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. V'ani berov chastecha avo betecha eshtachave el heichal kodshecha ve'yiratecha ma tovu Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Adonai ahavti me'on betecha umekom mishkan kevodecha mishkan kvodecha atovu Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. V'ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chastecha aneni be'emet ishecha ma tovu Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Again, Shabbat Shalom and Boker Tov. Welcome to those who are here in our sanctuary, to those who are joining us in your own ohel, in your own tent, a tent of peace and a tent of rest and a refreshment of soul for Shabbat. We pray that it is a tent and a home of holiness and of peace on this day. We continue on page 78. Page 78. Eloheinu shamash natata bi tahorahi. My God, the soul that you have given me is a pure one. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God. You are the God of my ancestors, the source of all creation, and sovereign of all souls. Baruch atah Adonai. Praised are you, Adonai. In your hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Asher biyado nefesh kol chai, beruach kol basar ish. Our morning blessings begin on page 80, and the traditional words Nisim b'chol yom are found on the right-hand side of the formatted prayer book as it's open before you. So the Hebrew is on the even number pages. English interpretations are on the odd number pages. I invite you to join with me this week. We'll chant the traditional Hebrew together, but if you are more comfortable, then certainly follow along in English, either traditional or interpretive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sech ve'evina lahavchin ben yom uvein laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumihim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten laya'ef koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'enai utenuma me'af apai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani b'tselem Elohi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gevura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tif'ara. Amen. The Sukkei de Zimra, selections on page 94. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam baruch hu. Blessed is the one who spoke and the world came to be. Blessed is the one. Blessed is the one who continually authors creation. Blessed is the one whose word is deed. Blessed is the one who decrees and fulfills. Blessed is the one who's compassionate towards the world. Blessed is the one who is compassionate towards all creatures. Blessed is the one who rewards the reverent. Blessed is the one who exists for all time, ever enduring. Blessed is the one who redeems and saves. Blessed is God's name. With songs of praise we extol you and praise your sovereignty. You are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praised and glorious ruler. Your name is eternal. Melech mehulal b'tishbachot. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign, who's glorified through praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Melech mehulal b'tishbachot. Page 96. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות. עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. Page 101. נשמת כל חי תברך את שמך אדוני אלוהינו, ורוח כל בשר תפארו תרומם זכרך מלכנו תמיד. Let the soul of everything alive bless your name, Adonai our God. The spirits of all flesh glorify and exalt your name forever, O Sovereign One. Transcending space and time, you alone are God. We have no sovereign besides you. God of the first and the last, God of all creatures, Master of all generations, who's praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps. God awakens the sleeping and arouses those who slumber, giving speech to the mute. God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. L'chalavadcha anachnu modim. To you alone do we acknowledge with thanks. Chatzi Kaddish is on page 106. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yidutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala ba'agala, uv'izman kari, v'imeru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach, Le'olam olmei olmaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitba'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei Dikudsha, Barichu, Le'elam min kol birchata v'shihirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Daha mihiran v'yolma, V'imeru, Amen. Our call to worship, Baruch Hu, beginning on page 108. If you are comfortable to do so, I invite you to please rise. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Leolam Vahed. Page 110. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit, marabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita mala ha'aretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, Ve'al me'orei or she'asita yefa'aru chasela, or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkechu lanu mehera la'oro, Baruch atah Adonai yotzer hame'orot. Page 113. Please join with me. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said. And like blinded, we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries. Your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch Ata Adonai, Habocher Ba'amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Vahed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Vahed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Seated, maybe seated. The words of Deuteronomy, page 116. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha b'derech uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha uv'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובהשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Emet. So for those who were not aware, tonight and tomorrow actually is the new year. So in addition to saying Shabbat Shalom, and then tonight when we say Shavua Tov, we can also say Shana Tova. Tonight and tomorrow mark Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, the month of Nisan. In the Torah, it's known as the spring month, and it's the first month in the calendar, actually. So you remember that Rosh Hashanah, when we change the number of the year, now 5771, Rosh Hashanah is actually the first day of the 7th month. But tonight and tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh Nisan of the, not to be confused with Toyota, I know, right? But Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is the spring month, the most important month actually in Jewish history because it marks the Exodus from Egypt. And for those who may not have been aware, 2 weeks from tomorrow night, then, 2 weeks from tonight is the first Seder, because it's then the full moon of the spring month. So recognizing that through our worship this morning to celebrate the new moon and the spring month, the month of our freedom and the first month of the year, there will be some included themes and melodies from the Passover experience, reminding us and preparing us for the Seder. So on page 117, this reading combines a translation and interpretation of the teaching of Deuteronomy that we just chanted in the Hebrew, and also with some of the themes of our freedom and redemption that we celebrate in this particular month. So the middle of page 117, we'll read responsively. If we can hear the words from Sinai, then love will flow from us, and we shall serve all that is holy with all our intellect, all our passion, and all our life. If we can serve all that is holy,
we shall be doing all that we can to help the rains flow, the grasses to keep green, the rains to hold like the sun, and the rivers to be filled with light once more.
All the children of God shall eat, and there will be enough. But if we turn from Sinai's words and serve only what is common and profane, making gods of our own comfort or power, then the holiness of life will contract for us. Our world will grow inhospitable.
Let us therefore place those words to our passion and bind them as a sign on our hands and eyes.
Let them write them upon our doors and teach them to our children. We teach our children, and let us honor the generations that came before us as we keep the promise for those yet to be. Page 122. Remember this melody. The Hebrew words are adirhu, adirhu. Okay. And the English is God of might, God of right. Thee we give all glory, but here we'll use michamocha. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai. Michamocha nehedar ba'kodesh. Nora tehilot O Seifele Shira Chadasha Shibachu Gehulim Leshimcha Al Sfat Hayam Yachad Kulam Hodu Dehimlichu Vehameru Adonai Imloch Leolam Sur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Uftechinu mechav Yehuda v'Yisrael, Go aleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Someone didn't like the melody, what can I say? Blessed are you, the God of redemption. We celebrate the story of our freedom. Beginning on page 124, our tefillah, central part of our worship service. The ark will be open. I invite you to rise. The first several pages will be chanting together. Adonai, sefatai tiftach, ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mei Geula Livnei B'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo V'yahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Abraham, Be'ezrat Sarah,
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים וחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומטיהר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
Page 130. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאיך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, מלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Let's be seated. Page 132. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. We'll continue silently, privately, either with the words of tradition as they continue through the tefillah till page 140, or the thoughts and prayers of our own hearts. Page 134 to 140. Please join with me, page 141. 141, the middle of the page, is prayer for peace together. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, bashalom. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimru amen. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimru amen. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amen. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen. We will continue with our Torah service, page 244. 244. David, I would invite you to come and assist us on the bima with the Torah. Ein kamocha ba'Elohim Adonai, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. אב הרחמים, היטיבה ברצונך את ציון. תבנה חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים. כי בך לבד בטחנו, מלך אל רם ונישא, אדון עולמים. 246. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Le'amo Yisrael Bihi Kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadol Adonai iti Oleremem Shemo Yachdav. Lecha Adonai HaGedula VeHaGevura VeHaTiferet VeHaNetzach VeHaHod. Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha, ve'amit naseh lechol rosh. Please be seated. This is actually a double portion, Vayakel and Pikudei, the last two parshiot of the book of Exodus, of Shemot, marking not only the conclusion of the story of the Exodus and of the revelation at Mount Sinai, Ma'amad Har Sinai, but also the construction and the dedication of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle that the children of Israel have constructed there in the desert, and all the various parts of the tabernacle, the altar, and the Mizbeach is the altar, and the Aron, which is the ark, of course, which we and every Jewish synagogue around the world emulate, with an ark in which we keep our Sefer Torah. The ark in the wilderness carried the tablets, actually two sets of tablets, the broken set as well as the complete holy set of the Ten Commandments. The tablets of the pact of the testimony is how they are referred to in the Torah. And as all this construction, if you will, is completed, Moses actually does the final act of completion. And then we conclude the book of Exodus, of Shemot, and believe that you know that the tradition is that we say the words chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, let us be strong, and we strengthen each other as we mark the anniversary specifically of this particular episode and great achievement and accomplishment of the Israelites there in the wilderness. And it happened, don't ask me exactly how many years ago, but it happened on the anniversary, the first day of the first month in the second year after the Exodus from Egypt. So it is exactly the anniversary. Tonight, tomorrow is exactly the anniversary of this completion of the tabernacle and the dedication of same as described in the Torah. I'm going to read from near the end of the 40th chapter of the book of Exodus.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayhi b'chodesh harishon Shana Hashenit be'achad lachodesh hukam hamishkan. And so it was that on the in the first month of the second year, that's the second year of the since the Exodus, on the first day of the month, the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was firmly established. Vayakem Moshe et hamishkan. Moses completed the foundation of the tabernacle. Vayitain et adanav, vayasem et kirashav, vayitain et berechav, and vayakem et avodav, and his particular act. And the Midrash goes into a lot of detail as to why it was that the children of Israel, will comment about it in a few minutes, why the children of Israel did all the initial building and constructing and bringing all of the materials, but it was Moses at the very end who added the poles and the sidebars and all that was needed for the tabernacle. And because don't forget, it was going to be portable for them to take with them in their wanderings through the desert. Vayfros et ha'ohel al hamishkan, and then he set up the tent around the tabernacle. Vayasem et michsei ha'ohel alav milamala, and he used the tent kind of as a covering. They didn't have to worry too much about rain, but as a covering, a protective covering over the tabernacle, ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe, as God had commanded Moses. Veikach veitain et ha'edut al ha'aron, el ha'aron, and Moses then took the stone tablets and placed them into the ark. Vayasem et habadim al ha'aron, and he placed the carrying poles. If you can picture, so that the everyone except Micah wouldn't be able to put the weight on his shoulder, but everyone else was helping to carry on the poles over on their shoulders. Vayitain et ha-kaporet al ha'aron milamala, and place the covering then on top of the aron, on top of the ark. Vayavet ha'aron el hamishkan, bringing the ark into the tabernacle. Vayasem et parochet hamasach, vayisach al ha'aron ha'edut ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe, and he then placed a curtain over the ark, so that it was protected as the ark itself protected the tablets of stone, as God had commanded Moses. V'akem et hachatzer saviv lamishkan ulamizbeach, and then Moses set up a courtyard, a perimeter, if you will, around the tabernacle and the altar. V'yitain et masach sha'ar hachatzer, placing a curtain or a covering over the fencing that was there to protect the holy place. V'yitain et masach sha'ar hachatzer v'yichal Moshe et hamalacha, and As he did this, then Moses completed the holy work, the labor of providing for the tabernacle and the altar. V'yachas ha'anan et ohel moed uchvod Adonai malei et hamishkan. As the work was completed, the cloud of God's presence came upon the what's called the ohel moed. In a religious sense, that's the tent of meeting. That's the holy place, as it were, the religious headquarters. Uchvod Adonai malei et hamishkan, and the presence of God filled the tabernacle. V'lo yachol Moshe lavo el ohel moed. Moses could not enter then into the tent of meeting if the cloud of God's presence was there. Ki shachan alav ha'anan uchvod Adonai malei et hamishkan, as the cloud signified the presence of God there over the tabernacle. Uvehealot ha'anan me'al hamishkan yis'u v'nei Yisrael b'chol masehem. And whenever the cloud lifted from on top of the tabernacle, then the children of Israel knew that they could continue on their journey. They would pack everything up and be able to move. V'im lo ya'aleh ha'anan v'lo yis'u ad yom ha'elato ki anan Adonai al hamishkan yomam ve'esh tihiyah laila bo le'enei kol beit Yisrael b'chol masehem. And so it was that if the cloud lifted, they would move on ahead. If the cloud representing God's presence stayed over the tent of meeting, they would not move, they would not continue on their journey until the cloud did lift and they could follow it. Sidebar. For those of us who are in the desert, or those who have traveled in the desert, especially the dry desert, okay, you can kind of picture what this cloud might have been. The sand that is thrown up when several 100,000 people would be moving. And if they saw that the sand was moving away in a place, then the people who were encamped perhaps a mile away knew that, now it's time to move. But if the sand was staying put in the one place, they said, okay, I guess it's not time to move, because they certainly didn't have loudspeakers or bullhorns to announce it's time to move on. So that was their symbol, not only of when to move, but that was their symbol of when God's presence was indeed with them. And this was a visible symbol. Le'enei kol b'nei beit Yisrael b'chol masehem. It was visible to the children of Israel throughout all of their journeys. And hence we say, Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek. Let us be strong as we strengthen each other.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'dorkeinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Did you want to do it? Okay. We rise as we honor the Torah. Vezot haTorah asher sa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yad Moshe. If you want to sit, it's the easiest way. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, haolam omed. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, haolam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Okay. Please be seated. So as was mentioned, tonight and tomorrow mark Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Rosh Chodesh Ha'aviv, the spring month. And so we welcome and bless the new month, the new year. It's the known as Rosh Chodesh LaMalachim, for the kings. Page 261. 261. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu shetchadesh aleinu et hachodesh haba l'tova v'livracha v'titein lanu chayim arukim, chayim shel shalom, chayim shel parnasa, chayim shetehei banu ahavat Torah v'yirat shamayim, chayim sheyimalu mishalot libenu l'tova v'nomar amen. Please join with me. Our God and God of our ancestors, may the new month bring us goodness and blessing. May we have long life, peace, and prosperity, a life exalted by love of Torah and reverence for the divine, a life in which the longings of our hearts are fulfilled for good. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Yihye B'Yom Aleph, Yom Rishon Haba. The new month of Nisan will begin tonight, tomorrow, on the first day of the week. As we recognize the celebration, and as we recognize the joy of our liberation and our redemption, we also traditionally, in the presence of the Torah, we also offer a Misha Beirach, a prayer of healing and wholeness, of refuah and shlemut, of renewal and recovery. This prayer for healing comes from the Machzor Ruach Chadashah in London. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all together those who are sick among us. Eternal God, grant wisdom, insight, and skill to those who bring healing, courage, and faith. May those who are sick know healing. May those who care for them know strength. May your presence rest on those who are suffering and bring them comfort. Soon may they know a time of complete healing of body and spirit. And we all say, Amen. Page 253, before we join together in singing Debbie Friedman's interpretation of the traditional Misha Berach Lacholim, we think of our friends, members of our community, and our loved ones, those whose names are included on our Misha Beirach list. We pray for all of them to know healing and wholeness. We extend our prayers on behalf of Chris Anderson, Harvey Beam, Sheila Berman, Nasima Bernhardt, Irene Case, Brian Clendenin, Joyce Cohn, Alan Delman, Heidi Demarest, Dennis Durante, Jerry Gale Feldman, Mark Feldman, Melissa Feldman, and Nancy Feldman, Jeffrey Saul Gervan, Phil Gedsag, Ruth Gossman, Warren Gratis, John Halloran, Dawn Kitts, Sharon Laws, Fred Legat, Jan Lund, Michelle Matalon, George Morris, Yolanda Pilgus, Bernie Pincus, Marley Pincus, Lynn Roman, Nancy Schwam, Lori Sherman, Avraham Raphael Ben Shoshana, Lou Simon, Ruth Stevens, Art Webb, Alan Winter, Sherry Wolk, and David Wolpert. Are there other names that anyone here in the sanctuary wishes to add, or those at home certainly out loud or in your heart? Please include them as we include them in our prayers for healing, wholeness, and peace. Page 253. Bishabera Avotenu Mikor Habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Yisheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Our Haftarah, the blessings of which are on page 254. The Haftarah comes from the first book of Kings and refers specifically to the dedication of not the tabernacle in the wilderness, but of the first temple in Jerusalem. The construction was begun by King David, was completed by King Solomon, his son, and then the dedication also took place on this first day of the first month in that celebration, and recognizing God's command to provide a Mishkan, a place where the eternal presence will be able to dwell. So Solomon completes the temple and has a dedication ceremony that is referred to in the Haftarah that parallels what we read in the Torah. Page 254, join me in the blessings, please. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'inviei ha'emet v'tzedek. When all the work that King Solomon had done in the house of the Lord was completed, Solomon brought in the sacred donations of his father David, the silver, the gold, and the vessels, depositing them in the treasury of the house of the Lord. Then Solomon convoked the elders of Israel, all the heads of the tribes and the ancestral chieftains of the Israelites, before him in Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord from the city of David, that is, Zion. Solomon declared, "The Lord has chosen to abide in a thick cloud. I have now built for you a stately house, a place where you may dwell forever." Then with the whole congregation of Israel standing, the king faced about and blessed the whole congregation, saying, "Praised be the Lord, the God of Israel, who has fulfilled with deeds the promise he made to my father David, saying, ever since I brought my people Israel out of Egypt, I have not chosen a city among all the tribes of Israel for building a house where my name might abide, but I have chosen David to rule my people. Now my father David had intended to build a house for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel," Solomon continued. "But the Lord said to my father, as regards your intention to build a house for my name, you did right to have that intention. However, you shall not build the house yourself. Instead, your son, the issue of your loins, Solomon, shall build the house for my name. The Lord has now fulfilled that promise that he made. I have succeeded my father David. I have ascended the throne of Israel as the Lord promised. I have built this house for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. I have set a place there for the ark, containing the covenant which the Lord made with our fathers when he brought them out from the land of Egypt. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sur kol haolamim, Sadik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'neheman, ha'omer v'oseh, ha'medaber u'mkayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al ha'nevi'im ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnucha lechavod ultifaret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umevarchim otach yitbarach shimcha b'fi kol chai tamid leolam va'ed baruch ata Adonai mekadesh hashabat. Amen. Page 256. We rise to return the Torah to the Ark. Yahalalu et Shem Adonai ki niskav shemo levado. Let us praise the name of Adonai. God's name alone is exalted. Chodo al eretz v'shamayim vayarem keren le'amo tehila lechol chasidam libnei Yisrael Am kerovo, hallelujah, hallelujah. Ki lekach tov natati lachem, torati al ta'azovu, eitz chaim hi, lemachazikim eva, v'tomachea, meyusha, derachea, Darchei Noha v'chol netivoteha shalom. Ashiveinu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh chadesh yameinu chadesh yameinu kekedem. Please be seated. So the last portion here in the second book of the Torah contains, as we said, the details for the construction of the tabernacle in the wilderness. It was a 4-month task since the children of Israel left the base of Mount Sinai, coordinated by Itamar, one of Aaron's sons, and embodying the artistry of Bezalel and Aholiab. The children of Israel now had a holy place for their tent of meeting in which God's presence would dwell. Every adult male participated in the first building fund campaign of Jewish history. Everyone donated a half shekel or more. All whose hearts so moved them brought gifts of raw materials like skins, jewels, threads, dyes. Moses, who already was known by the people as a prophet and as a lawgiver, now assumes the role of master contractor, the master builder, as it were. Workers and the tabernacle, almost complete, stand in the center of the camp. Moses looks out, sees all the work, and he blessed it, and he blessed the people. There's a fascinating midrash I referred to earlier, which continues the story. Moses, chapter 40, and some of the verses that we read seem to teach that Moses himself assembled the final parts of the project. The rabbis tell a legend that when the tabernacle was completed, everyone was understandably excited and anxious for the finished project to be dedicated. But despite the best efforts of the designers, the structure wouldn't stay standing up. Workers, laborers, artists, men, women, children all tried unsuccessfully until they came before Moses and said, why doesn't the tabernacle stand on its own? Did we overlook something? Did we do that? Was there a defect in the material? Was there a flaw in the blueprint, as it were? Moses assured the people that everything had been done according to his and to God's stipulated instructions, but the Midrash continues, it was God's explicit wish that since Moses himself had not participated physically in the building of the Mishkan, the final task, as it were, twisting the last screw, hammering in the last nail, was to be reserved for Moses alone. The heartfelt gifts and beautiful artistry of God's dwelling place would be constructed in vain if it did not include Moses' wisdom, spirit, and faith. Thus, the quotation from the Torah is, they brought the tabernacle to Moses with the tent and all its furnishings, but Moses finished the work. Now that's an interpretation twisting around a little bit, that the work was completed and made it Moses completed the work. The tabernacle in the Torah is also symbolic of not only the historical Jewish community, the Israelites in the wilderness, but also even into the 21st century. Like the tent of meeting in the wilderness, our communal tabernacle, and I don't mean a synagogue building. God knows we have existed as a community outside of our synagogue building now because of the pandemic. But the combined tabernacle and community of the Jewish world has been constructed by hundreds, thousands, millions of men and women with varied skills and resources and backgrounds, by institutions, not only the synagogue, but federations and agencies and centers and councils and congresses, all dedicated to serve the needs of our people in the wilderness as well as in the metropolitan areas. Each has an important role to play in the stability of our Jewish community. Each has a function to fulfill in helping maintain the strength and beauty of our collective Mishkan, God's dwelling place, which is amongst all of us. According to another commentary, both Bezalel and Oholiab were needed to build the Mishkan in the desert because their talents were different. Rabbi Abraham Isaac Kook describes the tabernacle as embodying the sacred meeting ground of two polar human capacities. On the one hand, this tabernacle, the community in which God dwells, it's sacred. Bezalel, according to Rav Kook, was the kind of spiritual genius who could conceive of God's physical wishes. Bezalel, in his design, could begin with the mind of God and carry that knowledge to earth. But Oholiab, on the other hand, worked with the practical, the tools of a human being, reaching out for God's presence. He started with an appreciation of the potential within each person, within each detail, and pursued a path of making something special out of the ordinary. Isn't that what we try to have in our community, whether it be based in the synagogue or just amongst all of us? A blending of that which is inherently kadosh or holy and inherently chol, which is ordinary. Bezalel began with a vision of the sacred. Oholiab started with the ordinary. The tabernacle in the wilderness took its form when their two minds met. It was only left for Moses to finally put all the pieces of the puzzle together and invite God's presence to fill the tent. So it must be for us as well, even in our modern world. There are those of us who begin with that which is sacred. We devote life, love, energy to making God's presence felt. There are those of us who begin with the ordinary, the pedestrian, struggling conscientiously to elevate that which we do into acts of faith, call them mitzvot. So we need all of us together, working on behalf of our Mishkan, our tabernacle, our place for God to dwell, because of who we are, what we do, and what we wish for Am Yisrael and for all the world. And let us say, Amen. We continue with our prayers of adoration, Aleinu, and then memorial prayers of Kaddish, beginning at the bottom of page 282. Again, the ark will be open. I invite you to join with me.
Aleinu l'shaveach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצון, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
284.
שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום להשיבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת עינות.
287.
ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Page 293. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. We remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Invite you in anticipation of reciting Mourner's Kaddish to consider the meditations that begin on page 288, or else the thoughts and memories of our own hearts. We think of those whom we have lost. We think of those whose names are not mentioned. Hundreds of thousands of victims of the pandemic that affects the entire world. Innocent victims of natural disasters and senseless acts of hatred and terrorism around the world. And those who have given their lives in the service of forces of decency and democracy. We bless their names, even if we do not recall their names. We give thanks for their lives, their gifts, and we remember. In our community, We think of loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, even during this past month. We honor the memories of Daniel Day, Dory Roman, and Mel Roman. We think of those who died during this past year. We remember them and honor them. Jessica Bakke, Ralph Block, Fran Devine, Terry Freed, Marion Friedman, Isabella Gonzalez, Jeannie Gordon, Ashley Lake Hamilton, Martin Hollander, Norman Clapman, Jack Kramer, Werner Lawson, Isaac Richard Mayo, Janelle Mitchell, Jim Mardinley, Shmuel Shaham Ben Hanoch, Kenny Spears, Faye Starr, Bud Stein, Stephen Weig, Alan Winfield, Sol Wise, and Loretta Ziegelman. We remember those who died at this season in years past. We draw them into our hearts with our own, especially in this, the week of the anniversary, their Yortzeit, and in the weeks to come as we complete the time until our Festival of Freedom. We honor the memories of Jack Atlas, Zelda Beam, Julius Bellow, Beverly Bender, Reba Berger, and Sam Berger, Alfred Cohn, Helene Fish, Evelyn Elof Gorel, Philip Jaroslaw, Florence Kaplan, Eunice Konikoff, Michelle Kohana, Edith Levy, Linda Metz, Molly Nurnberg, Dorothy Rosen, Philip Israel Rosenblatt, Julius Schachter, Joseph Schleinberg, Mildred Scheinberg, Isidore Sharkey, Bess Simon, Morris Sirota, Norton Tannenbaum, Isidore Weinstein, and Rose Weinstein. Are there others whose names anyone wishes to add to the list? Again, either here in the sanctuary or at home, we invite you to honor their memories.
Eddie Strauss.
Zichronam livracha. Truly may their memories always be for an abiding blessing. Kaddish Yatom, Mourner's Kaddish, is on page 294. Our tradition is that we rise in sympathy with those who mourn and recite these words hallowed by centuries of faith. Yit gadal v'yit gadash shmei rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayedcho beit Yisrael, v'agalav izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach leolam melol me'ol maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei kudsha barichu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran b'yalma v'imru amen. Yehi shlom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. O se shalom b'imroma, huya se shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol b'nei adam v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring comfort to those who mourn amongst us. May God, in answer to our prayers, bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all humanity, to which we say, Amen. Please be seated. Announcements. Announcements.
Let's see, we have a movie on Wednesday.
We have a movie on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. Paper clips. Which, for any of you, I've used the particular movie for more than 20 years in my college teaching class about the Holocaust. It's an inspiring story if you've never seen it.
And then Friday we have services.
Services next Friday night.
Yep, 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Next Saturday we Torah study again.
Next Saturday will be Torah study.
Which definitely is not an Exodus.
I'm sorry?
Which
Which is definitely not an Exodus, no. No,
We're still in
we
Genesis.
haven't even gone to Egypt yet, much less come out. So I invite you to try this along with me. Most of you know the tradition here, or it's a custom. It hasn't been around long enough to be a tradition yet. It's a custom. Is that we put Adon Olam to all kinds of different melodies. Try Go Down Moses. Right? It's a little tricky. But it works. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'ed Nasa B'chetzo Kol Hazai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Hoveh V'hu Yiyeh B'tifara והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי בחי גואלי וצור חבלי בעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא. Obviously, we have to repeat the last verse. Ve'yado afkid ruchi, ve'et ishan ve'aira, ve'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li ve'lo ira. Ve'yado afkid ruchi, ve'et ishan ve'aira, ve'im ruchi geviati. Velo ira, Adonai li, velo ira. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom, Shabbat Shabbat. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. And Shana Tova, and Happy New Year again.